Hello, my friend, and thank you so much for joining this episode of the Summer Sizzle series. I am Christa. You're listening to Enneagram and Marriage. Thank you for choosing to be here with me. We are not going to waste your time today. We are going to have a good time helping you to get centered and learning about when your two types collide in the bedroom, navigating your sexual shadow and growth. So, this is an important episode. We're bringing things together all this week. So, make sure you come back for Wednesday as we close out the series. But we have already explored your initiation styles together, the three centers, the head, heart, body, the response patterns, the pleasure and sensory languages of each of you. So make sure that you go back to those and just find one time to have a conversation with your spouse as we walk through the series together. This is one of the most important areas of marriage. And this whole podcast, we do self-pres instinct, sexual, and social, but that one-to-one instinct is what the podcast is about. And sometimes we need to talk about this part of marriage because, frankly, this part is talked a lot about in argument spaces. So I want to help you guys to get along better, to have more openness together and respect. You've heard me say it before. The most important thing about this series is for you to come in authentically loving your partner just as they are, even as you both aim to grow from that very space. So I hope you're having a good day, good weekend. We've had a good time coming back off of all of our trips and travels. And now we're just enjoying some regular rhythms. And I'm hoping to stretch that out for almost another month. I'll be doing some writing this month of my book. I will be doing some planning. I am finishing up my summer projects from the whole last 2 months. And like I said, hoping to stretch out another time. But I hope you're also making the most of whatever season you're in right now, because living our life with intention is what this podcast is all about. And it felt so good, quite honestly, when I went to my list of what I had hoped to accomplish this summer and I saw 60 to 70% of things done. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to look at this list and it probably isn't done as an overthinking type. And I was just so happy I was on the ball. And I was, of course, needing grace for the things that weren't there yet, but there was so much done. And I bet you if you write down the things you need to accomplish, also, you will find such joy in checking things off. It feels really good. So I'm just, like I said, I'm trying to stretch out a few more weeks of summer and allow for that growth to continue at a healthy pace. So today I had some Molly Losheen tea from the island of my great grandmother, some sourdough bread that my friend gave me a starter to, and Melody made it so deliciously. And now we're just going to get cozy here. So get your drink and snack if you need to. And let's talk about something crucial as we talk about your shadows from the start. First of all, your shadows, yes, we need to look at them. Yes, we need to shift, but they're not just flaws to be ashamed of. I don't want you to bring shame in. They're growth edges, they're data points for us. And that's important because we can really lose our footing if we get lost in shame. You are loved, you are forgiven. And especially as you continue to work out your spiritual journey, hopefully you'll bring that healthy perspective into your bedroom journey too, to say, I'm loved here, I'm forgiven. I make mistakes sometimes, but I'm working on it. And I want to explore these growth edges today and with my spouse with curiosity and compassion. So, just wanted to get that out of the way to make sure you know that. And also to know that every single Enneagram type or instinctual variant has these different peak places and then also spaces for just challenge, quite honestly. And when you understand your shadows and their shadows, you can work with them and not against them. So, just knowing that you can bring it up in consciousness so that you can make these shadowy areas doorways to deeper communication and sometimes compromise will be important, because you're never going to have a perfect spouse at the end of the day. You're never going to be perfect at the end of the day. So you can't look to say, well, I'm going to make you just like me or vice versa. This is just an invitation to grow together. So definitely want to walk through some shadow patterns of all the types, but I'm going to go through those triads. So listen for you and your spouse's type. And I'm going to go through the body types first, the ones, eights, and nines, and they generally have control and anger shadows. So the eight, for instance, can have the shadow of vulnerability avoidance. Eights can use intensity to avoid emotional vulnerability during intimacy. And this shadow is believing that showing softness equals weakness. But the growth edge is learning that your gentle strength is actually more powerful than your your defensive intensity. So it's just learning I don't have to be without power, even when I show my gentler side. And I can come in for emotional vulnerability, even though I'm strong. And that may be a new thought for some of you. And that's an important thought if it's a new thought. And talking with your spouse about that and saying, one thing I notice about myself is that I can tend toward thinking that it's going to be a mistake to show you areas of vulnerability when in fact I think that could really be a gift to our life together in the bedroom. And to show that emotional side, maybe you have some tears when your spouse speaks to you in a beautiful way, or maybe you say, this has always hurt my feelings and I've never told you before. That would be really special to bring that in and know that you're still strong, even if you do that. Now, for our nines, they can deal with, of course, or you can deal with disconnection or going through the motions as a shadow. And you can disconnect from your own desires and just go along with whatever you think your partner wants. So your shadow is more like disappearing sexually rather than advocating for your own needs. And the growth edge for you is staying present to your own body and your desires. Nines love their comforting touch, as we talked about last week. So for you to share that is, I know, a big deal sometimes, but really worth it so that you both can experience pleasure and joy, and not just the pleasure that we get from giving, but also receiving. There's a pride that could be wrapped up in each type, not just type twos who deal with pride as a vice, but all of us if we don't share our needs too. So allowing yourself to have that conversation. Hey, I probably haven't brought this up to you, but when this happens in our bedroom, it feels really good. Or when this happens, it doesn't feel good. That's so beautiful for your spouse to get the knowledge of, and for you too, by the way, so that you realize, again, this is data. It's not that you're good or bad. It's just learning. Now, our last body type, perfectionist type ones, can have that perfectionism blocking pleasure. And ones can get so focused on doing intimacy right that they miss the actual pleasure and connection. So the shadow is criticizing themselves or your partner during intimate moments, but the growth edge is releasing control and trusting the process and allowing for a bit of coming undone. And that could be so scary to come undone toward your spouse if you're used to that control. But to be able to say, you know what, intimacy is going to be messy and sloppy. And I know that my husband really loves C.S. Lewis. And I remember in the book, The Four Loves, I've talked about it before on this pod, but C.S. Lewis is like, this is not always a neat area. So just be prepared for that and allow yourself to find the connection, even in disappointing moments or in moments where you would normally say, oh no, this situation isn't quite right. We need to have the better bedroom sheets or whatever it is. It's too late to be able to just say, let me just allow some joyful intimacy right now. Let me back off from judgment. So those are what I'm saying to our body types about control, judgment, and holding back the true intimacy. Now, the shadows for the heart types are often going to be about the image pieces and the shame pieces, to no one's surprise. So, our twos, threes, and fours. And for the two, you can lose yourself in your partner's pleasure and become so focused on their needs and pleasure that you disconnect from your own. Little bit different from nines here, though. Your shadow comes from knowing and believing your worth comes from just both giving and receiving versus just giving. And your growth edge is learning to receive pleasure without immediately giving back. And so allow yourself to say, I still have worth, even if I'm not the giver. I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday, and that was really hard for them. And they said, I'm the giver in the relationship. But then they realize sometimes they get this passive aggressive frustration when they don't share their actual needs. So just allow yourself to not shut off, like, oh, I got what I wanted. Now I'm shutting off my sexuality. Allow yourself to say, no, I want to enjoy a sexual pleasure too. I'm not just having sex, giving to get something else. I want to truly have intimacy. That is something we could talk about all day. So just really look at that. If you're a three, I do get it that you have some performance anxiety, some image management going on. So threes, yes, you can get caught up in looking good or performing well rather than that authentic connection we know you deeply want. So just remember that your shadow can be focused on making emotional drama rather than simple connection. And your growth edge can be finding beauty in the ordinary, vulnerable, authentic moments, embracing the imperfection, making it not all about the performance, So yes, I know it sounds a bit fourish, but really important that you realize that some of the wings of our type and 3 and 4 wing each other, they're going to share some of those pieces together. Threes really like their authenticity. So make sure you go for that and look at how you can look away from performance and say, like, let's just enjoy ourselves. Whatever happens, happens. We're learning all the time. I don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect, but we can still keep learning because I know that's something threes like to do. Now, for fours, of course, there is going to be a sense of a shadow of emotional overwhelm or withdrawal at times, in addition to the emotional drama, the same thing with the authenticity. And fours can get lost in that emotional intensity during intimacy or withdrawal when they don't feel they're being treated special enough, when the moment is not special enough, when they don't feel they're special enough or their partner. And so for a four, the growth edge is finding beauty in the ordinary, right? The ordinary moments of love and bedroom time, and just allowing for joy without it having to be this ethereal moment of everything, but just allowing for a beautiful moment because it's ordinary, just as, drinking a cup of tea from my grandmother's island, not the same thing, but like there's beauty in those everyday moments that you can find yourself in versus thinking it has to be the perfect setting in every possible time and way. Now, for our head types, I very much resonate with this anxiety and overthinking shadows. So, I really wanted to think about this for all of us. And that's the one piece that resonates with fives, sixes, and sevens is this overthinking. And I know sevens don't usually resonate with the word anxiety, but hear me out. We do struggle with it too. So, for fives, it's more about energy withholding and that resistance of presence, because there's a sense of like I can maintain the control during intimacy if I withhold. And if I fully give myself to you, then I'm going to be overly depleted. So, of course, your growth edge is trusting that shared energy multiplies rather than diminishes. And I know this fear and fallacy, and it is a fallacy. You will get energy, you will be okay. Obviously, use your wisdom, but definitely notice that you are having a shadow there too when you overthink, overplan. And that's happened to me many times. Now, type 6, anxiety blocking trust and presence. Yes, that too, but really the pleasure, because sixes will often be present, but they won't have the pleasure because they're looking at the worst case scenario thinking, or even onto the next thought and thinking about what's after the sexual experience, preparing for that in their heads, and just unable to fully relax and receive pleasure in general. So the shadow is believing something will go wrong. I better prepare and plan. And that growth for you is, of course, learning to trust in that moment and your partner's care. And really, again, like I said, to once just becoming undone and allowing yourself to, I'm going to lose a little control. I'm going to breathe deeply. Just like if you're a female and you've ever nursed a baby, you have to do that let down. Allow yourself that space and time. And then, of course, our sevens, the avoidance of depth and difficult emotions can be really tricky for sevens. So, keeping your intimacy light and fun is almost always a joy of sevens, but avoiding the emotional and deeper controlling, pieces that you otherwise try to control forward, they're not your best stride here, because you're like, oh my gosh, I can't do my obsessive planning here. I've got to just laugh. I can't come into some healthy control over my emotions. Those are fallacies, those are shadows. You can come into healthy self-control. You can come into depth without as much heaviness, just like I said to eights. And the growth edge for all of us sevens is discovering emotional depth enhances rather than diminishes joy. And that may be a process of just knowing and noticing at first, just to say, oh, I'm noticing myself tearing up a little bit because I'm processing something I usually don't, or I'm noticing myself opening my heart, and I'm not going to shut it. I'm going to let it stay open. I'm enjoying this moment, and I'm going to bring my full love into this moment. That is a challenge. And I think it's a really beautiful challenge for sevens, but also our thinking types, to be fully present, not planning, not thinking worst case scenarios, not withholding. Oh my goodness. So we've gotten to talk about all three of these types today in terms of the body types, the heart types, the head types. And reminder to all of us, that beautiful truth that your sexual intimacy is one of the fastest ways to grow and heal, because you're physically vulnerable, your defenses are down, your patterns are more visible, your immunity's up. It's a beautiful place to connect, but when we're not, it can be such a big shadow. So let this guide you. Let this episode be a conversation piece with yourself, with your journal, with your spouse, where you're learning how you're protecting yourself unnecessarily, or even worse, like I said, sabotaging with these shadows, showing up just how am I abandoning myself or my partner? How am I receiving and giving both? Let me balance that. How am I present in my body? How am I learning how to have vulnerability, trust? These are really important, really good questions for you to be asking. And remember, when your partner's shadow shows up, your spouse isn't trying to do that to get personal on you. It's just their type's way of trying to stay safe. So your job is not to fix their shadow, it's to create safety, to explore, and to notice together. This is what we do. This is what I do. This is what you tend to do when we're not at our best. And how you can just shadow to light practice really quickly with this is identify your shadow pattern. Just talk about it. Is it performance for me? It doesn't have to be your Enneagram type. Is it perfectionism? Is it romanticism? Is it withdrawing intensity? Whatever it is, say, this is what it is and share it vulnerably. Say, this is what I tend to do in intimate moments. And then ask for support. And what would help you support me when this happens? Just what could we do about this together? Don't come in with all the solutions. Let your partner be part of that and create a little signal for when the shadows appear that you could say, oh my gosh, our shadows are here. You could just say it, or you could have a signal word and then practice curiosity instead of judgment when you do see it. And just remember, it's not going to disappear overnight, but that goal of conscious awareness and compassionate support will take you so far. So I'm thankful for our time together. I'm going to ask you today to take one thing from today's episode for you. And maybe it is, I'm going in for that conversation. I've been avoiding it these past couple of weeks. Maybe it's, I'm just going to enjoy one little 1% better movement that I'm going to make with intention. Whatever it is, get that in your mind right now. Good job. I am so proud of you for doing the difficult work, but also very rewarding work of making sure your marriage is healthy and healing and so fun. And don't forget to join us this Wednesday for the sexual integration episode where we're integrating all of our learning, accessing your intimacy superpower. And I hope that this week, when you see your sexual shadow rising up instead of fighting it, just get curious about it. Guys, ask yourself, what am I trying to protect myself with? And then allow for some healthy release, healthy vulnerability, and healthy joy. This is your beginning of transformation. Take a nice deep breath, give yourself a pat on the back for all of your hard work today, and I will talk to you soon. Bye bye.